doctors would argue, and they say there's an enormous amount of information about cancer, that you can go to the National Cancer Institute site in America, and you've got an enormous amount of information, and they're right. There is an enormous amount of information.
But what does it mean?
But what does it mean? What does it mean? And it's, I take the view that actually you don't have, experts usually get something wrong. Experts are usually wrong, whereas amateurs may be very often right, because amateurs are looking at the general and the experts looking at the specific.
Correct.
Right? So if you get the general wrong, it doesn't matter how many more steps you go. So you can be an expert. The more you're an expert, the more wrong you are.
So the more junk you generate, so to say.
The more junk you generate, exactly.
Right.
Whereas, and there's an argument, very strong argument, that all cancer research is junk because it's using cells in laboratories and not human live cancer cells. And it's also using rat cells and mouse cells and rabbit cells and so on. So there's a big argument, a very good argument, that all laboratory-based cancer research is junk.
So, I'm looking back at your experience when you so-called cancer appeared in your family life. Now, and there you are, you had so-called piece of information at that time when cancer happened in your family. Now, in your impression, was that honest, balanced, adequate type of information available to you at that time?
Obviously not, but the problem is, if you're looking at, shall we say, the Cold War, and you just listen to the Russians, for example, are you going to get a balanced view of the Cold War? No, you're going to get the Russian side of the Cold War. Are you going to get a balanced view if you look at talk to the Americans but not talk to the Russians? No, again, you're going to get an imbalanced view. And that's the same in the field. What I wanted, and my problem was, there were a lot of people saying the only sensible thing to do is surgery, chemotherapy, radiation.
At that time?
At that time. On the other side, there was other people who were saying, that's crazy. No, the only sensible thing to do is diet and supplements and herbs. And
were you exposed at that time?
I was exposed. There were books. But there's this middle ground. How do I decide who is right? That was my problem. I say, okay, you say this, and you say this, and you say the other side are crazy, and you say the other side are crazy. Who am I to believe? On what basis am I to make a decision about that? And I eventually started to make that decision on non-scientific grounds, on, shall we say, rhetorical grounds. I looked at the arguments. What is the argument? And what is the way the person expresses the argument? How sensible is that? And then I looked at that and I thought, no, the government approach is not logical. I started to see logical gaps in the information put out by the American government, the official agencies, like the Cancer Society, the FDA, and so on. There was information that
you were aware at that time?
I started, yes. I mean, it took me a long time, but maybe 6 months. But I read a very important book, and I think it's a book that everybody has to read. And it's called, it's now called The Cancer Industry by Ralph Moss. Yes, Cancer Industry. This is the book that opened my eyes. It is such an important book, and everybody needs to read it.
I see. So at that time, when you were faced with this problem, you were aware, except that...
No, I wasn't aware. I wasn't aware of anything. I didn't even know what the word cancer meant.
Yes, when cancer struck, But as
I went to, I understood, when my, before my wife was diagnosed with cancer,
yeah,
8 years before, my daughter was born with Down syndrome.
yeah,
My experience with my daughter told me that it's important to go and talk to people and read books and find out as much as you can. So I went to the Hong Kong Cancer Society. There was a Hong Kong Cancer Society. They had a small reading room, but they had a very good selection of books. So from America, a better selection in Hong Kong than I would have had in England, because they had the American books.
right.
And so I had a very good selection of books, and I read as fast as I could. I tried to get as much information as I could. And of course I got very worried very quickly because the books were telling me something was not right. But I had thought it's just a medical scientific issue. It's not a medical scientific issue. It's about life, and it's we've got to. Suddenly it became a political issue. It's political when, shall we say, the official organizations disagree with common sense. Then you get other people attacking them. Then it becomes political, right? And then it took me a long time to realize money is a big issue, and you have to see where the money is coming from, what money is buying, and it's buying.
So by the time
opinions.
you get yourself educated, was it too late?
Oh yes, of course.
You were not able to make use of whatever you learned.
Not only that, it made it worse because I was fighting with my wife because she did not agree with the things that I was coming up with. So it caused it would have been much better for my relationship with my wife if I just said, oh, the doctors are doing a good job, let me help you. But no, I was disagreeing with what the doctors were doing, and she was, it was her life, and she was torn. And she has, of course, all the respect that an uneducated woman, she's not highly educated, has for people who are highly educated. So that was